Welcome to And It's Live, the podcast which dives deep into football's most iconic seasons, stories, and what ifs. If you love football, history, tactics, and nostalgia, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop us a like on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. All right, so Newcastle United, one of the three promoted sides, and a striker, Adam, that you mentioned they got from Bristol City, somehow ahead of other teams who probably should have been having a look at him. And Andy Cole, once he starts, I mean, he barely stops. You know, Newcastle had a tricky start to the campaign, lost their first two games. They got a point at Old Trafford. Cole gets the point at Old Trafford, and then I think it's fair to say they very much kick on. They go unbeaten until October, but his goals, Adam, are just insane. I think he's got 10 and 11. I make it. It might be one or two out. But this, when you're a promoted team, you need something like this. You need a guy that the team can rely on, but the fans get excited about. You can definitely tell that feeling. They love a Messiah, obviously there, but he was very much filling that boots until later on in the story when he turns out a bit of a naughty boy. But at this moment in time, he's just so golden.
Yeah, he's an interesting character, isn't he? Later on with the whole "call me Andrew" shtick. Yeah, I think Keegan sort of summed it up in the preseason of this year, where he said if everyone gives him a chance, Andy Cole could be the answer to our dreams in this country. And I think that was quite prescient. I think obviously Keegan being Keegan liked a statement. I think we'll see that coming in years to come. But yeah, I think he's getting off to a flyer is so huge. Obviously we mentioned the tail end of last season where he came in and he scored lots of goals, albeit in the division before. But I think it's the signing of Beardsley for me that makes this. I think Keegan actually said, I read something in 442 the other day where he said, I'm going to sign a player just for you when he brought in Peter Beardsley, because, I mean, Peter Beardsley's well over 30 by now. It's a lot of money getting spent on him at this age. Obviously, they've got the hometown club link and all that sort of stuff, but what a partnership together. We spoke about maybe more traditional partnerships, for want of a better phrase. This one isn't one. I don't think I would peg this even now. Like Peter Beardsley and Andy Cole as a kind of strike partnership. It's not quite even as modern for the time as maybe your Cantona and Hughes is. So it's a really fascinating one, and I think the pace that Cole gave, the awareness off the ball, all that sort of stuff, for me is just incredible. He was one of those players that I would imagine Keegan would have played well with as well. And maybe that was part of it. I don't know. I'm keen to get your guys' thoughts, but maybe that's, we talk about those managers who can't do it because the players that they've got can't do what they can do. I wonder if this is us seeing it in the positive version of that, where I know exactly how to play him because I would be the person giving him the ball. Therefore, I know who I need to do that, and Beardsley is that guy. So I think he was just razor sharp. I mean, he was, for me, the most exciting player in this calendar year, if not this full season for sure. I liked how modern he was. He was strong. I don't think he certainly wasn't. He wasn't a skinny guy. He would probably be stronger than you would have thought. But yeah, I just thought the pace, the off the ball running, and just the goals. Every type of goal. It's not as if we're speaking about Mickey Quinn or anything like that, and it's going to be a specific type of goal you're scoring. Just so many in his locker. And yeah, I thought he was fantastic. And there's maybe, again, I'd be keen to get your thoughts. Maybe a little parallel there with Wright in terms of doing what he does at a certain point in time with a club that suited him, with a environment that he's good at. Obviously, he'd go on and do very well at Man United as well, but more the sort of England aspect of it. For me, again, someone who could have been and never did quite become the answer that I think people thought. But yeah, terrific season. Summed up Newcastle. I think that Beardsley-Cole partnership was the crowning jewel for them, and you can sort of see Keegan's logic in terms of how he played it. So yeah, really terrific start for Cole this season. And we go on and score a lot.
Davey, I was going to actually ask that same question that Adams put, that there's something of the right in England with Cole as well. I think these guys just need to be
loved,
assured and loved,
managed,
and putting that. But 34 league goals and 40 league appearances in his first season in the Premiership with a promoted team. Now, a genuine
with money,
team, a team that was ready for that challenge, absolutely. But it was sensational.
It really was, because he'd only arrived at Newcastle right on deadline day as a sort of, a last push for promotion, where he gets 12 and 11 for them. So he kind of come to our attention, if you like, beforehand. I'll be honest, this is before the days when Sky showed all the divisions, so I didn't see much of him in his Bristol days. But you noticed that because there was so much attention on Newcastle. Anyway, huge club, and Keegan we spoke about last week. So this guy's 12 and 11, wow. And then they signed Peter Beardsley, we mentioned last week that seemed to fit. And how will they get on? And I did think, I can see that, because he reminded me a bit of Lineker, Andy Cole. I think he was a more modern iteration of Lineker. But I remembered how well Beardsley and Lineker had partnered for England. I thought that will be interesting. They get 65 league goals between the two of them. Beardsley gets 24. They get 65 goals across the season. Beardsley gets 24. Cole's entire record for the season is 41 goals in 46 appearances in his first season in the Premier League. His first season in top division football, full stop, coming on the back of 12 and 11. This guy was a Haaland-esque phenomenon at this point. We had not seen numbers like that. These were Ian Rush numbers. That's the nearest comparison I could do. Had he come up and got 20, we'd have been going, that's pretty good. But to come up and get the amount of goals that he got, and the types of them, again, he had his signature goal. He absolutely did. Slipped through by Beardsley, found space, finish. He did, right? And there are a few of them. But there are headers, there are tap-ins, there are howitzers, there are back post runs, there are front post runs. He was deadly. And I think that because of the personality he didn't do interviews with the TV. A bit like Paul Scholes, he just didn't want to. Nervousness, really. I mean, I think sometimes people can put it down to negative reasons, or it's arrogance, or whatever, but it's not, it's shyness. And Andy Cole, I think, even when you've seen him do his punditry work, like Paul Scholes is a bit more hard to figure out, because he's obviously a very gregarious guy and whatnot. Andy Cole is a quiet guy, and quite a complex guy. And I think you're absolutely right, Martin. He needed managed by big personalities, confident personalities, guys who knew that they had the run of the club. If you look at his most successful spells, he was working with people who could confidently assert and could dictate the entire mood of the club. Keegan at Newcastle, Ferguson at Manchester United. And he's not going to get that at England. And then we factor in the competition that we mentioned earlier. He just never looked happy, I thought, in an England shirt, to be honest. He just didn't look settled. And he had to be settled, I think. But the form he showed this year was incredible. The goals Newcastle score this year, they get over 80 in their first season back in the Premier League. It's phenomenal. But the Beardsley, the Beardsley and Cole partnership was wonderful, because he was already brilliant, right? We know that the potential was there. But you mentioned there Keegan telling him, listen to what, go away and work with Peter. And Beardsley's advice on where to be, when to start your run, how to avoid being offside. There's a lot of teams that play an offside trap back in this era. Where to find yourself. It's that he improves. He continually improves. I think he improves at Manchester United as well. I really do, because he was coachable. He took instruction well. Had to be delivered in the right way. But if it was, he would take it on board. This season, honestly, I keep going back to it. Haaland, that's what it was like, where he was putting up numbers that were outrageous. Ian Rush at his peak, and he built up to this, was hitting these numbers. But he built up to it, and he was in by far and away the best team in the world. That's not to denigrate Ian Rush. I'm just saying, though, he had that advantage in the way that Haaland does. Andy Cole was playing for a promoted side, and was just absolutely remarkable. And another thing about Andy Cole, incidentally, that doesn't ever get mentioned, Martin, is for a striker who was pacey, and plays in that difficult up front role where you take a bit of punishment, remarkably durable as well. He plays. He's not a guy that got rotated. And even at United, he started a hell of a lot more than, and he was rarely injured. But this season, he exploded onto the Premier League. And everyone loved this Newcastle side. As I say, we were kind of set up to anyway. It was Keegan. That was intriguing. That was romantic. He's back at the club where they've made him a god. Beardsley's there. That's great. There were a couple of young Geordies in the side as well. There's Lee Clark. There's Steve Howie that are coming through and impressing this season. But he was a star. He was absolutely the star.
See, the personality-wise from him, I'm quite interested to know what you guys think. I think he was at Arsenal as a youth. I think he played once or twice for them, and George Graham, I don't think, was a massive fan. He doesn't really strike me as a George Graham type of person, but personality-wise, I wonder what he would be seen like now, because I think a lot of people sort of see him as, Jimmy Hill said he would never make it as a footballer when he went to Fulham on loan from Arsenal. There's a big interview in 442, which I'd recommend people reading. It's really insightful about it. But he basically said, you think you're a bit of a player, don't you? Whereas I don't think you're ever going to be a player. And he was like, sort of dealt with it in the same way that he dealt with George Graham. He's like, that's your opinion. You're not going to tell me what I am and what I'm not. So it's one of those things where, is it an arrogance, or is it just responding to people that are, I don't know, like not being fair? But there are a few interesting points. He fell out with Keegan in this season. I think in October, wasn't there? There was a bit of a falling out, and he gets back to they make it up. But there's a really good story which I'll just tell just now. But one of the questions on this interview, it says, a mad Newcastle fan got a tattoo of you on his leg just before you signed for Man United. Did he ever get in touch asking for his money back? Seriously though, what was it like to be in a football mad city like Newcastle? And he said he never got in touch, blah, blah, blah. But the next bit, I think, is quite insightful. He said, I enjoyed it in Newcastle, but it was difficult playing there. I was a young man, struggled to deal with the level of adoration. I just wanted to play football, go home, and go out with my mates. When I went out, some punters would say, well done, that was fine. Others wanted to hold court with you. I could be having a meal with my missus and people would come up and want to get involved in the conversation. It did my fruit in. Loved my football at Newcastle, but I felt trapped. The more goals I scored, the worse it got. The milkman to the bloke in the paper shop, everybody wanted to talk football. It's quite an interesting one. He's almost like he maybe suits more being in a big city with lots of bigger clubs if he doesn't want that kind of adulation. But that to me is that would be one of the best parts of it being a Newcastle player. I think that it's just so, when it's good, it's good. It's just a one city club. Yeah, we absolutely love it.
It maybe would be at the start. I've always wondered about that. Not being able to walk down the street with people staring at you. Football still, I think, is uncomfortable with people who are quiet for whatever reason. Football is uncomfortable with people who don't want to get involved in bants, don't want to get involved in the dressing room horseplay, that are maybe serious, and my personality is different to that. But you get people who they're not aggressive or nasty or dour or anything. They're just quiet, and they just want to be left alone and to get on with what they're doing. Andy Cole was very guarded, I think. He's always come across like that. He values his privacy, and there's nothing wrong with that. Newcastle is absolutely the worst city in the world to be there if you're like that, because the people are so gregarious and the people are so outgoing and fun-loving, and you're going to get that. But you do get players. I mean, we from Glasgow, we know what the Goldfish Bowl was like up here, and I've heard former Old Firm players saying, "Yeah, great, amazing at the club, but I couldn't go to the supermarket without being mobbed. It was like Beatlemania." And they've moved to clubs in England, smaller clubs. Obviously, it's a bigger, richer league, but they like that they can just go about their business. They'll maybe get recognised by two people, on a Saturday in Southampton. It's not this thing. You're not going to get that in Newcastle. It's slightly different, actually, in Manchester as well, because in Manchester, the people are again very gregarious, but there's a harder edge to them, I would say. And so they're going to come up to you, and it might not necessarily be as complimentary. The Geordies are going to come up and fate you. I'm not sure that in Manchester that always holds true, but Manchester, I think, was used to having separate bits for players. There wasn't that interaction. There were velvet ropes, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. And there was space for players to exist in. But yeah, Martin, I don't know what you feel about this, but I've just always got the sense that football in England struggles with players who don't fit into a very kind of specific and well-worn trope of personality. And Cole was like that. And of course, then, because they don't understand it and don't go, quiet guy, leave him alone, great footballer, enjoy him for what he is, they find a negative for it. So it's like, he's arrogant, he's difficult.
Yeah,
that's a word that gets thrown out. He's difficult. Yeah. It's like, he's not difficult. He just doesn't want to get involved in the stuff that maybe is considered normal, in air quotes.
It's a country that values team spirit in both senses of the word, perhaps, and how they foster that spirit. So the lads, and that dressing room, and footballers, when interviewed, going down a particular route and cliches and whatever else. So I think you're right. Quieter ones not trusted. Anyone who reads, not particularly
anyone who
trusted.
Reads, like Graham Lasso, because he bought the wrong newspapers for the dressing room.
Maybe there's. Maybe I'm clutching at something, but Steve Archibald, maybe 10 years before, a very different time, but I think the same kind of personality, quite quiet, a loner. When Venables wanted him at Barcelona, he'd be speaking to Spurs players. What do you want Archibald for? He doesn't talk. He's and I think Archibald's got an incredible quote about team spirit as something that's viewed through the prism of success. I mean, it's a bit of a mirage, really. So yeah, not trusted is probably it. There to do a job also, by the way. And this is where fans don't really trust, or there's a tension. What do you mean this is just a job? I would kill to do what you do.
What do you mean you're not one of us?
Good. If you enjoyed the show and want to help us grow, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. On YouTube, search for And It's Live Podcast. We've got new deep dives, drafts and breakdowns dropping every other day.